So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome all for the 7th episode of Express Connect. In this, as you all are aware, we call the industry experts and experts in the various fields in this webinar. And today we have a very interesting topic on power of gender equality. So you all must be aware that United Nations have laid down certain sustainable goals which needs to be achieved by 2030, and of which India is also a party to. And one of the goals is the gender parity or equality, which also aims at empowering women and girls in the country. So gender equality is it's not only a fundamental human right, but it is considered as a foundation for a peaceful and a sustainable world. Gender diversity still continues to be low everywhere, and especially I'm talking about CPSEs, we being a government company. So even in Maharatnas, which are considered as the best among the PSUs, the strength of women workforce is between 5 to 9% only. But we are happy to say that in Air India Express, madam, we have 35% workforce are women. Out of them, we have 45, we have women pilots. Out of them, 16 are captains and 29 are first officers. You know, many of them have climbed the professional hierarchy, have become check pilots, trainers and examiners. These also, several key positions in the company are held by women. We recently bagged award from the Economic Times for the best workplace for women. We are very proud of it. And we are happy to have Geeta Jain ji today. I'll just introduce her to all of you. Geeta ji is a founder, mentor. She's a founder of MentorW and a former CEO and chairperson of CWT India. MentorW is an initiative. It is dedicated to mentoring women professionals. And along with her team, MS Jain is committed to supporting women professionals, achieving their potential and excelling in their careers. Geeta ji is an experiential business leader with a proven track record of over 27 years in managing large organizations and also leading diverse functions, including strategy, operations, financial planning and analysis, project management, etc., etc. She has extensive international exposure, having worked in managerial teams across several countries over many years. She has been in global leadership roles and is regarded very highly by her colleagues for her talent management, inspirational leadership, work ethics, and driving business leaders, which is very, very important. So we would like to hear from you, madam, on this topic of why the power of gender, what is the power of gender parity, and why we should aim at having gender parity.
Sure. Thank you so much, Aditi. Thank you for that generous introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It is truly a pleasure and privilege to be here with all of you today. I was quite looking forward to it. The moment I received the invitation, I grabbed it. I didn't think even once. It's so truly my pleasure and privilege to be here. Like Aditi mentioned, I have recently stepped out of the corporate world about 5 months back after a 27-year corporate journey and set up a venture to mentor women professionals. So the session, as Aditi mentioned, is all about why this is important, and also what does it mean to all of us as a community, what value does it drive, and what can we do individually and collectively to make an impact. So I'll share a little bit of my perspective around that. And then I do hope to have some interactions towards the end of the session. I hope to have some meaningful commentary and questions from all of you, so we can make this more relevant for everybody in the audience. Let me share my slides. I have a few slides that I'm going to use just so that you can follow the conversation. Okay, so I know that gender diversity as a concept has been used fairly commonly for the last few years now. The United Nations goal that Aditi just referred to also talks about gender diversity. But diversity, as we all know, is about inclusiveness. It's making sure that we get diverse backgrounds, we get people from different groups and communities who have different perspectives come together to make a whole, which is important, including for women group. Being on the table is very important. But I think it's time for us to go beyond that and look at gender parity. Let's not forget that women are 50% of the population. But we don't have the same representation in the workforce. If you look at the numbers, and Aditi made a reference to that, but even the headlines of Times of India today talked about some states that are doing better than the other, but overall we might still be below 20% of gender diversity in the corporate world, in the professional world, whereas we are 50% of the population. And then this is not just about nice to have parity. This is not about being equal. Yes, of course, that's important psychologically, emotionally, socially, but there's also a huge economic value associated with that. There have been quite a few studies done in the recent past to try and estimate what gender parity might result in. In fact, one of the recent global studies has put the estimate of $28 trillion that can be added to the global GDP if you're able to achieve gender parity. So that's a huge amount of money. That's a huge amount of economic value. Even for India, we could add $770 billion to the GDP if we are able to achieve that parity. So this is not just fun stuff. This is not emotional. This is true business value. As an organization and as a nation, we could drive a lot of value by giving women the rightful place in the corporate world, in the professional world. Now, before I go any further and talk about what this could mean, I also wanted to pause and going back to Aditi's comments, I wanted to capture that because I know I'm talking to an audience who's very evolved in this space. I was speaking with your CEO, Mr. Alok Singh, last week, and within the first few minutes of our conversation, I was very clear in my head that here is an organization and a leadership team that truly walks the talk. They are very passionate. Mr. Singh was extremely passionate about the subject. And the numbers speak for themselves, right? 35 to 40% of the workforce. You have very balanced representation across job roles and levels. What would have otherwise been a male domain, male expert areas, you have very healthy representation across all those functions, as well as across all levels in the organization hierarchy. So kudos to you and the team. And it's not surprising then that you get the recognition that you've recently received. It's very well deserved. And I wish you and the entire team all the best for your future endeavors as well. This is really heartening to see that we have organizations that have set the standard for themselves and are equally keen by having conversations like the one today to take this even further. So my commendations and my compliments to Air India Express for their achievement and for the way forward. So let's talk about why this is important. It's always good to start with a why. There is the baseline that we're talking about is a painful place. We have to address the gender gap that exists today. And the gender gap that exists today has existed in the past, exists not just in India, but universally everywhere in the world. The numbers might be a little here and there, but this is a universal phenomenon. We're not talking about anything which is more of recent times or India specific. There have been multiple ways of looking at this, and we all know the ratios, the diversity ratios continue to be fairly low. We start out with, it's like a funnel effect. You have a lot of women joining the workforce, but then 5 years into their career or 10 years into the career, they drop out. So when you look at the overall organization, the gender diversity keeps thinning as you go up and up the ladder. But more importantly, how do women feel in the workforce? There is a recent study by LinkedIn. It's the LinkedIn's Opportunity Index recently published. For India specifically, the numbers are quite alarming. 85% of the working women feel that they've missed out on promotions or raises because of their gender. A large number of women genuinely feel that they are not at par when it comes to salary for the same job. There is a gender bias there. Working mothers have a largest amount of issue in terms of managing work-life balance, and they feel discriminated because there isn't an environment that supports their personal life. Now, there are many more numbers and reports and studies that have established exactly what we know already, that there is a huge gap between the two genders when it comes to the professional lives, their ability to succeed, how comfortable women feel at workplace. There is a long way to go. So the first thing is to even accept that there is a problem. And by accepting the problem, we are also committing to addressing the problem in the near term. Let me also say, though, that, and this came as a surprise to me, or rather a disappointment to me, that we would have thought that our generation has probably moved the needle. The fact of the matter is that's not the case. The numbers of women in the workforce as a percentage of the workforce is currently at the lowest in the past over 3 decades. So the latest census says that the participation of women in the Indian workforce is at its lowest in the past over 3 decades. Now, that's something to be concerned about. There is also other studies that suggest that 1 in 3 women are actively considering dropping out of their careers at any point of time because of personal life events, but also largely due to the disillusionment with the work culture. Now, this is all pre-COVID as well. With COVID, the situation has become even more grave. The International Labour Organization gave out its report and said that 2/3 of the jobs that were lost globally due to COVID were those of women. So we know that there is a grave, alarming situation when it comes to gender parity. We are still talking about diversity, only getting a representation, but when it comes to equal representation, there is a huge, huge concern. And that's the reason why we need to focus on this. So that's the why. So recognizing the gap then, the next thing is what has caused this gap and what can be done about it, the what. Now, it's intuitively, we know what has caused the gap. We have had generations and generations of social, cultural context where women were meant to be homebound, looking after the home front, which is perfectly okay. And yet, when the opportunities came, their careers were seen as secondary or discretionary. So women careers are subject to everything else falling in place. Only if the family lives allow, if the families are comfortable, will they allow women to work? And that's true for a lot of them. It doesn't apply to this audience, obviously, but in the context that we are all living in, that seems to be the norm. So there is a sense of, we are almost wired in a fashion that women feel that the moment there is the slightest of conflict or any challenging situation, they will quit their careers because their foremost responsibility is to manage their home front, which is good. We want to manage our home fronts, but it does not have to be mutually exclusive. Your careers and your personal lives don't have to be exclusive, but we've been wired over the years, and we have now started to behave as if this was the most well-accepted social norm, where women give up their careers to be able to look after their families. So that's one part of it. That's from the supply side of the talent pool. On the demand side, you'd be surprised. I mean, your organization is obviously doing a much better job, but a lot of organizations, even though they're trying their best to be equal opportunity employers, but they're still very male-friendly. Corporates have traditionally been designed to be male-friendly because that was a male domain. We had a very few number of people who would go into the office environment. But things have changed. And yet, despite that, there continue to be a lot of invisible, intangible practices in the corporate world which make women feel uncomfortable. They come in the way of women succeeding at the workplace. So it's time for us to look at both of these carefully, both on the demand and supply side, to see what can we do to address that gap. So there is an intent, the corporates are making that effort. However, they're looking at it more at a policy level or talent acquisition level. But there's a lot more to be done on a day-to-day basis to look at things that are appreciated, recognized in the work culture, which women may be at a disadvantage with. So with these two things coming together, what can we do? If we know what has driven it, we should also know what to do about it. What can we do about it? We know that there are fewer women from our generation or the generation before who are in the workforce. So when the new women enter the workforce, they don't necessarily have role models to look up to because they don't have women in their own families or in the near social circle who they can look up to, observe and learn from, or talk to and resolve their conflicts or doubts in their mind. So there is a dearth of that role model population. Unlike that, men, when they enter the workforce, they have ready access to their own previous generation or other people in the social circle that they can approach or learn from. So women have a bit of a vacuum there. We have to be able to close that vacuum and provide that support to women. We also need to be able to give out an environment where women are not stereotyped. Their personal circumstances are not seen as excuses. They're allowed a certain environment where they can operate freely. So feeling judged or feeling stereotyped is one of the things that causes a mental barrier for our working women. We need to move away from that and get them into an environment that truly at par, recognizing the special needs and yet given the parity and the respect that they deserve to be performing well in the organization, yet in a way that works best for them to balance their work and life. So that's the what part of it. The how. What is it that we need to do? What exactly needs to be given to those women, to our women professionals? There's a lot of hand-holding that needs to be done. It is not enough to say we welcome women talent. It is not enough to say we are hiring women talent. What do we go beyond? How do we go beyond that? I think women need exactly that personalized attention that's been missing in their lives all this time. Now, when I look at, and because we are mentoring women from all kinds of social contexts, you start to wonder how we actually address a population of 1.3 billion, because every person has a unique context and a different way to approach their professional life. A girl passing out of college, sitting in the remote area of Tamil Nadu somewhere, she said, I'll be the happiest person on earth if I can get a job in a nice metro. For her, that's the dream. For another girl sitting in a metro who's passed out of a good university, she's looking for a family to be able to afford an education for her outside. A third person who's passing out of college says, my parents want me to get married. I don't even know if I can pursue a career. To be able to pursue a career might be a dream. I mean, I can go on and on. But the thing is that we are looking at people as individuals. And to have the bandwidth and mind space to look at individual needs, it takes a very different approach to talent. We need to appreciate and respect that every single person has a very different context and therefore might have different dreams or goals to begin with and would need a very different level of hand-holding. Yet, when women get into the workforce, I think we need to almost boost their confidence in kind of inject something to get their self-confidence to a level that they feel themselves at par with men. We would find that women generally find themselves doubting, they need validation, they keep thinking about should they be in the workforce or not. So we need to make it real for them to say, you have the competence, you have the educational background, the technical qualifications to be in the job. All you need is the confidence, one, to be at par, and two, to be able to follow your career as long as you want to, through your whole life for that matter. Now, work-life balance is a real thing as well, right? We want to make sure that somebody's looking after the house, and inherently, women have the competence to do that. So as we groom women, we want them to understand that this is not going to be a linear path. There will be phases where you can focus purely on your professional life, and then there will be phases you can afford to slow down. And slowing down doesn't mean quitting, it means slowing down. And then there comes a stage where you can pick up speed all over again. To do that, it is important that women understand that there is something called a goodwill deposit. They build a brand for themselves by way of their behavior, skills, performance, their interpersonal skills, and then they start to encash that as they need some lean time in their personal lives. And the organizations will be happy to support them. But that work-life balance is not just about managing your day-to-day. It is about making sure you have the right priorities at a given stage of your career or your personal life. And that's what women have to get comfortable with. Very quickly, we take an all or none approach to say either I'm in my professional life or I'm not. But I think people like us, people like me, and there are many of you on the call who have done both. And what we really need to do is to make it real for the next generation, for the other professionals who are in doubt, who do not know how to go about managing both the fronts. It is perfectly okay to slow down every now and then, focus on one, and then the other thing comes under control. It's on auto cruise mode, and you start focusing on the other. That's perhaps the only way to survive and sustain our careers. And I think that's, again, a matter of being adaptable. And adaptability for women, it's true for everybody. Adaptability is a very important need and a skill. In fact, I personally believe that apart from intelligence quotient and emotional quotient, I think in our day and age, an adaptability quotient is going to be key. The changes, the way things are changing, even for men, the way technology is bringing changes to our workspace, we will have to be highly adaptable. For women, there is an added dimension of the personal life events that make the change, make an impact to their overall lives. So the adaptability is going to be a key skill, and that's something that we need to work with them and handhold them on. Similarly, we find that women historically, and I look back at my own early years of career, we are not as keen on networking. We do not put a lot of emphasis on networking. We see that as a male domain to say, okay, men have the time to do it. They are, they can go out and socialize. They can, they can make it happen. We have other things to do. Now we are trying to bust that myth to say networking is not what we thought it is. It is actually an ecosystem for all of us to grow and sustain. Invest some time in that. It doesn't have to be a personal time, but make sure you invest. So there are some myths, there are some barriers that women have created over periods of time that we have to start working with them and say, that's not how you're going to sustain your career. You've got to do things that make sense to you. You might have to prioritize one thing at a time and yet invest in your future, make it work for you. So the how part of it is providing that counseling, emphasizing behaviors that they might have undermined or even suppressed. It's not as if they can't do networking. It's not as if they're not good at interpersonal skills. They are great. And yet they say, okay, I'll come to work, put my head down, get work done and leave. I'm not going to market myself. I'm not going to go out and network. So they kind of create those boundaries, which at some point it catches up. Your growth gets stilted as a result of that. So we are trying to inculcate that mindset to say, take a balanced approach to your career. And finally, one of the things which I would like to emphasize on this call as well is, as women, we are not as well as we should be about holding each other's hand. What I mean by that is, as a woman leader, if each one of us could identify a few women, 2, 3, maybe more or less, who we can mentor, share our own perspectives and experiences with, help them grow, help them come out of their little space, come every now and then, nudge them to say, no, you can do this. I'm here to help you. I'm here to guide you. You will see that it'll build a community feeling, which will be a very strong and powerful force for women to grow and sustain their careers. I know we do it in our own individual capacity sometimes, but this is not a culture and ethos that prevails. And I'm sure this works for you at some level already where you are, but this would be one call out for you as a group, if you're not already doing it, that each one of us can make a difference. Even male mentors make a huge difference. I have benefited personally from male mentors all my life, and even today I have a male mentor. So this is not about just saying women have to mentor women. Male colleagues can also go out and mentor women, of course, and men as well. But this whole culture of offering your hand, sharing your experiences, and more importantly, sharing your vulnerabilities. None of us had it picture perfect. We went through our ups and downs. So sharing your learnings and your weaknesses makes the other person feel comfortable. So I would say there's one takeaway coming out of this. Please go out and offer your hand to as many people from the younger generation or people who would think that would benefit from your learnings and experiences. Definitely go out and do that. There's just one more thing I would call out, and I'll pause at that, is we all, as working women, we live under this mistaken notion that we have to emulate the male behaviors. And I don't mean to stereotype here, but we all recognize that there are certain behaviors that are associated with women versus men. Beginning of this year, we polled a number of very senior corporate leaders, both men and women, and we asked them from their first-hand experience of working in organizations to say, what are those key traits that you believe made women successful, the ones that who've grown up the ladder? What are those things that you would call out? And you would be surprised to know that none of them actually hesitated in saying that the emotional quotient of these women who've been successful has been, superlative. And the emotional quotient we typically talk about is the compassion, their composure under stress and crisis. In fact, during COVID situation, it has been well established that women leaders have done a fantastic job of managing crisis, and conscientiousness, the level of integrity, the moral compass. So the emotional quotient that has always been seen as nice to have is actually a critical part of leadership. And we all recognize that in the future workforce, the robotics and the capabilities will somehow take away some of the technical expertise. What we would really need to build on in the future to manage a future workforce is the emotional capital. And therefore, having women leaders at all levels is going to be key to make sure that we can manage our organizations through influence, if not, and not authority anymore. So my message on this particular one is, as women, do not suppress your natural styles. Do not look for other behaviors that are not yours naturally to be able to succeed. You can succeed by actually allowing your own natural styles, your own emotional quotient to surface, because the world respects you for that. And I'm going to pause here to see if there are any questions, or Aditi, if you want to take on the next part of this.
Yeah, so the topic is, so I haven't seen any questions, but I would like to ask you one question. We are working in a public sector enterprise, and there are a lot of constraints of, as to what we can do for our women employees. So how do we address those as a senior management? How do we do it within the limited framework which is available to all of us?
That's a good question, Aditi. I think whether it is a public sector or another enterprise, the intent from the top is what matters the most. And like I said at the beginning of the call, I see the intent very strongly there. Your numbers speak for themselves, the recognition you've received. So the intent is all there. Now, what that intent can translate into might vary from organization to organization, but within the limits of what you can do, the internal programs that are run to mentor women is a big deal. It is actually very well received because you share the same context. Women have similar, experiences or go through similar journeys, and therefore having a mentoring program within the organization where senior women leaders take on a few mentees and help them with their experiences, their learning curves, that's one thing for sure you can do. The other is even for allowing women to actually interface and network. So the networking programs have to go beyond your organization. So if you have speakers or networking opportunities where women get to interact with and build network with. One of the things that I'm recognizing through the mentoring programs that we're running is a lot of women raise their hand to say, we don't know how to network. We don't know where to start networking. One of my critical development needs is networking. Now, it's usually done in a personal capacity, and yet we can make that, also facilitate some of that by encouraging interactions across organizations, by putting women into roles where they have an opportunity to network, or bringing them at the front of dialogues and conversations so they are visible. So in our day-to-day lives as well, of course, it's all about getting women to be, so there are lots of committees and task forces that are created in any organization, right? Working in an MNC environment, we recognize that every time a group is formed, one of the first questions that's asked is, Why do we have enough women on that task force or not? Do we have enough women in this committee or not? I think those kind of things become second nature as we do more and more of it. And then, of course, having your own women networking forums internally. It could well be that you have like a monthly session or a fortnightly session where women come together and discuss things that are relevant to them. Typically, it's called WIN network, Women in Network, wherein women discuss things that are relevant to them. Of course, it's open to male colleagues as well, but we discuss things that are closer to the heart of our female colleagues. I think there are multiple of those initiatives that can be created, and those are the ones that are created largely in most organizations. Aditi, I can't hear you. You might be on mute.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
What is your concept of a successful woman? And don't you think the romanticization of motherhood, etc., limit Indian women?
My concept of a successful woman is somebody who's been able to live life on her own terms. What that means is that decisions that we take are driven by our own understanding of the situation or what is required of us. Let me take an example here. Through my life, through my professional life, there have been 5 different opportunities or situations where I decided to forego a promotion, a relocation to another part of the world, because it did not fit in well with my personal life. Not even once have I regretted that, because it was my own decision, not driven by my family. My family was very supportive, right? So the thing is that if I've taken a decision that I know is in my best interest and that of people I care for, even if it is in a technical sense, I've stepped back, that was still my decision. So I've lived on my own terms. If I wanted to pursue a career, I've been able to do it. I've decided when to slow down and when to pick up speed. And I did it with the full support of my family, and yet it was my own decision. So at no point of time would I play a victim to a situation. I know I'm the owner for that decision and the consequences of that. Romanticization of motherhood. I'm a mother of 2 kids, and I do understand there are moments when you feel whether it's worth it, but there are other moments you feel that's the best part of your life. But in the context of a working woman, I think motherhood is almost a biological pressure on yourself to do something for the kids. It's not necessarily imposed. In some families, it is imposed. But in a lot of families, especially from the demographic profile that we might come from, your family might be very supportive. You might have all the support system in place. And yet, as a mother, you will not do a certain set of things depending on the stage of your child's life. That said, those are phases, and you come out of it. There are times, then once the kids are sorted out, they're grown up, you are back on track with your professional life. If you can afford to take that phase of slowing down, or if you've been able to build a goodwill in your organization where your organization is willing to let you work on your own terms, then motherhood does not come into the picture. If you've not been able to do that, and then you have to focus primarily on one, and you don't have a support system, then yes, it might sometimes come in the way or conflict with your professional goals. Yet, in the world that we're living in, with all the flexible working options, work from home, and other technology enablers, I think these things do coexist and can coexist in definitely the times to come.
Many a times we have come across, the employees or at a higher level, there is a feeling of guilt. And that feeling of guilt doesn't allow them to progress further. They feel I'm not doing enough for my family, and as you rightly said, that it will be a decision of that employee, but many times it is it may not be their own decisions, and it is just that out of the feeling of guilt they do that, take that decision. So how do we handle this issue?
This is very common, I think almost universal feeling. Like I said, it's a self-imposed feeling. It's a biological thing. It's not necessarily somebody else doing it to us. That said, my take on this is far more clinical. Big jobs don't necessarily mean a compromise on your personal life. I have, like I said, I have a family. I look after them. I have spent the whole life managing both my professional and personal life. the requirement is for us to know how we deliver results. It doesn't have to be long hours. Again, taking personal example here, with two kids, through both my maternity leaves, I got promotions while I was still on maternity leave. And each time I would say to my leader or the hiring leader to say, I am coming out of maternity. Are you sure you want me to move into this role? And they said, we are more than sure, because it's about, you're going to be able to deliver results. You don't have to be sitting in the office for 10 hours, 12 hours to do that. So it is about how you deliver results. It's not about long hours. I don't think anybody cares in today's day and age whether you spend 14 hours at work or 8 hours. Usually 8 hours is enough to get anything done. As humans, we have only limited attention span. So if you're able to drive results, any job that you have, you will be able to do that. But as you move into senior roles, more than your own capacity and your capability, it is about the teams that you build, the teams that you develop that will enable you to succeed. So for me, one of the prime focus areas has always been creating very strong teams that I can then involve, engage, and delegate. Unless you have that support system at work, you cannot deliver big responsibilities. So one, you invest in yourself, you take decisions that work for you, you find a way to manage your time such that you're efficient and deliver results, and then equally focus on building teams that will enable your success. There is no reason why women can't be in big jobs, deliver results, and yet be able to manage their personal lives. A lot of us have done that, and a lot of us, all of you, can do that as well.
Sure. There's one question from Swarna. Do you think getting emotionally involved with work, as women normally do, is beneficial for women? One way it drives them forward, but on the other hand, it is very stressful. So, how do we balance this?
Yeah, that's one of the areas of mentoring for us. Being passionate is one thing, being emotional is something else. Okay. You have to be passionate about your work. You have to bring your best to your work. Emotional is something, it can be a weakness. So when you get emotional with your work, you get all your personal, you put your personal stake to it. Whereas when you're passionate, it's a very positive energy. You bring the best to it. So I would always say, yes, women are more, they have a tendency to be emotional. They take things personally. They'd like, to deliver at any cost. But being a little detached and yet passionate is likely the best thing to do, because you make sure that you are driving building the energy towards delivering the results, and yet take a very balanced approach to say, if things did not go well, this is my plan B, or this is how I'll cope with it, and involving the larger ecosystem in this. Along the similar lines, women also have a tendency to take personal ownership for everything. Whereas if you were to involve the larger organization as part of the design of the solution, implementation, and the consequences, you'd be able to step back a little bit and look at that as something that the organization is doing. So, one, delegate. Two, make sure that you have a stress management, ability to cope with failure, because this is not personal. Organizations have to deal with failures. There's always an element of risk in whatever you do, and therefore there might be 10 instances where you succeed, there will be two that you fail. Learning to cope with failure is an important aspect of our maturing. And don't build this as a personal responsibility. Yes, you take accountability, but make sure that you involve the larger organization and experts. Raise your hand, ask for help. What you don't know, ask for help, but don't get emotional about it. Make sure you bring the positive energy and not your own personal emotions into the conversation.
Yeah, here I would like to also to add that when you give your 100%, you are happy. No, it's not a competition. It's just that you do your best in any given situation, and then you don't have those feelings of regret and all.
Yeah. And Aditi, just to that, on a philosophical tone, like staying true to my name, Bhagavad Gita, there are genuinely, when you know that you are doing your best, you're giving your best, unless the circumstances are such that the failure points are out of your control totally, chances are you will get the due credit and recognition. You don't have to be shouting from the rooftop to be getting recognition. So if you do your best, you bring the best of energy and build a team and work with the team, in a cohesive fashion. I haven't seen people failing just like that. I mean, you can fail because there are things that are totally out of your control, which every organization has a way to deal with.
And we have a very senior official, Leena. She's saying, in my 44 years in aviation, I have learned one thing. If you can't beat them, join them. Does it really matter what others think of me? That's very,
Very well said.
yeah. There's one more question. Number of girls excelling in competitive exams and CBSE board exams are large compared to boys, but we lose them in the workforce. Do you think legal or policy frameworks such as reservation could bring a transformation?
It's a pretty big topic to discuss because some of us have a lot of views and around reservation. But if I were to keep the word reservation out of it, positive, affirmative action, yes, I think in some way getting the numbers in is important. Making sure that you have the quantity. Some of us believe once the quantity is in, the quality will gradually take place because there becomes an ecosystem, a favorable or at least a balanced ecosystem for people to operate in. That said, I think this goes back to how I started my conversation today. Women are academically today at par and in most cases doing better. If you look at the toppers at different levels in the academic ladder, women are doing exceedingly well, outpacing men. And not just by academics. I mean, you look at the performance of our contingent that went for the Olympics very recently, or multiple different ways to look at that. So it's not the competence at all. It is not the lack of knowledge or qualifications or competence that drives this. It is a lack of either confidence or lack of a support system, either at home or at work, that drives women dropping out of their careers. And that's exactly what we need to build on. And we have to build at community level. Like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. You've got to do the same thing with women professionals. We all have to lend our hands because everybody has different context. So unless we understand what they need and what will work for them, we won't be able to do it at a top-down level. But yes, reservation or at least an attempt. I mean, in the private sector, it's not reservation. They'll say, okay, we have scorecard goals to say we need to have a diversity mix of 50% or 45% in the talent acquisition, as an example, right? And leaders are scorecarded on that. That's a goal that's given out to them. So things like that drive a certain behavior, but that's the entry point. My concern is largely what happens after that. You've made them enter the workforce. How do you retain them? How do you keep them engaged? How do you make sure they succeed? That's where the mentoring ecosystem internally and externally comes into the picture.
There is a question from our CFO. She says that there are many working women who do not get support from their family. How can they handle personal stress as well as official work pressure?
It is a very tough one, I have to say. I wish I had a real answer to that. I can only talk academically on this. But I think in the world that we're living in, people understand one thing, if not the other. They understand the economic value of working women, if not the social or emotional value. For that alone, working women are well accepted in a lot of households because they bring a certain amount of income and cash that the families need so desperately or so need all the time. What they lack out, what they feel they are not getting in the family is when they have to take a decision. There are times that the professional life needs a lot more focus. The rest of the family does not chip in to take care of the family responsibilities, and that's a problem that a lot of families face. For some of us, a solution to that has been outsourcing and bringing external support. Personally, that's the only way I have survived. Being in a nuclear family, I've spent last 20 years of my marriage with staff in the house that can help me in every which way. I have never been ashamed of raising my hand and say, I can't do it all by myself. I don't aspire to be a superwoman. I want to make things work for myself, and therefore, whatever it takes, I will do. I also happen to be fortunate to have a supportive family, but that said, we still need a lot of support outside of just the family. So bringing in an infrastructure that works for you is the only other thing you can do. At an emotional level, if you get valued for it or not, it's unfortunate. I hope, but I do believe, that's my strong conviction, that your kids, your children respect you for what you are. They respect your professional qualifications and your credentials. They take a lot of pride in the achievements of their mothers, even more so than they do for their fathers. There's some research also that says that, but this is also my first-hand experience, not just with my own family, but other family friends and network, where there is a very strong feeling of, accomplishment that the kids have when their mothers have done well or are in the workforce. So I don't know if it truly answers your question, to be honest, but for lack of anything else, all I'm saying is build your own infrastructure, whatever it takes. And two, if the rest of the family doesn't show you the level of respect and value for what you do, I can only say that I'm confident your kids will.
I fully agree with you, Geeta ji. Same here. My daughter is so proud of me. I mean,
Yeah.
so, and as you rightly said, we need to look at some support. We don't have to be superwoman and just take whatever help we can manage and get. That is very important. There is one more question. Do you think the post-pandemic scenario, where people have the active option of work from home, will make a change? Will those who dropped out due to location preferences join back in the new normal?
It's $1 million question. There are some trends that are emerging, not that we are out of the situation yet, but there are trends that are emerging. And if I were to believe some of the reports in the media from the last month, they said that the ratio of hiring of women has steadily been improving because of exactly this reason, that you can work from anywhere, you can work from home. That said, we're not out of the pandemic situation yet, so it's really hard to say how this will pan out. The talent pool is going to be definitely widened as a result of this, not just because of women, but also people sitting in their remote areas, people sitting in tier 2 cities who may not have been available in the talent pool in the past. I think we see some trends around that. And corporates have also tasted the ability to save money on the infrastructure costs, real estate costs, and a fair amount of engagement in the employees. Now, whether the level of productivity is the same or not is another debatable question, because there are multiple, there are conflicting viewpoints on that. But work from home is going to be a reality in some form or the other. It will not be either or, it will be a hybrid model. And I think it will be here to stay. There will be some roles, there will be some jobs that can be done remotely, and there will be some that will not be able to be done remotely. Field jobs can't be done remotely. So to that extent, it's here to stay for sure. Now, whether the mix of women will improve as a result of this, intuitively speaking, it seems it should, because with their qualifications, competence, and now their ability to work, they should be now very much in demand. And there are organizations, by the way, that make conscious efforts over the last few years to bring women back to work after they've taken a sabbatical. Why are they doing that? Because they understand that these women had to quit because of personal reasons, but they are absolutely fantastic talent. So the same principle applies here. Now, with the work from home situation, with a lower cost because of the infrastructure cost savings, you might be able to bring a lot more women into the workforce again. But again, it's hard to predict, and we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. It does appear from the sign of it that women should have a fair representation or better representation as a result from work from home options.
Geeta ji, you were talking about mentoring, but there is a question, like in the company, some women are still not willing to be mentored by some other senior employee. So how do we handle such cases?
I mentioned that I'm a big proponent of mentoring, both internal and external. There is a difference, however, between internal and external mentoring. sometimes, and it applies to all of us, because of our inherent biases that we build over a period of time towards job functions, people we interact, because we all wear different hats, right? At work, you might see me as as your customer, and therefore I behave in a certain fashion. Tomorrow, you want me to be mentored by the same person, you would likely not feel up to it, right? So there are those inherent conflicts and biases that creep in amongst people who have worked with each other or have known each other. It might cause some positive bias, but it might also cause a negative bias. So it's very important we identify mentoring relationships so that there isn't any existing bias. And that's a tough one. That's definitely a tough one within the organization. You'll see that a lot of global organizations do global programs such that women from another part of the world get mentored by women from another, from different geography. That does away with a lot of these conflicts and biases, as well as gives them a more global exposure. But within the same geography and entity, sometimes that becomes a challenge. External mentoring is definitely an option because it brings a certain level of objectivity and neutrality and an individual focus that might not be always there in the internal mentoring. And yet it's a good starting point. So if you had to give options, one of the things I've done in one of my previous organizations is ask mentees to choose mentors. Ask for 2-3 choices of theirs, and then we kind of match the two sides to say, here's all the people that have demanded, and these are the people available to. So we kind of match the two things together. It could be a bottom-up exercise as well, not just a top-down.
There is another question. Is it not a fact that we as a country should make efforts right from the curriculum to ensure right priorities for Indian women? As the age-old myths of ideal boho is still the strongest image in popular culture. Taking it forward, Geeta Jain, I would like to give an example. We have done some CSR projects in different states. And what I also observed that in state like Kerala, where the population is educated, the women, the Gram Panchayat leaders, they call them pradhans, they are so forthwith in coming forward, knowing the issues in their locality and coming forward and discussing with us. But same thing we did in a state like UP in Varanasi. And I found that the pradhan is just, is just a stamp. I mean, everything is done by. So this question is kind of relevant to that. How do we change that system?
The social cultural changes take generations, right? It's not overnight. The education system has a role to play. And I believe that at least in the cities, I find that the proportion of girls and boys, the way they interact at their schools, the level of, in fact, sometimes I feel, like I said earlier, girls are outpacing boys in at least up to a certain point, they all do, right? And there are plenty of data points to our census to say up to a certain level, girls are far ahead of boys. So the education system has not been an impediment, so to speak. But I think it's, again, more than the education system, there is a social cultural fabric. And therein, I believe that families play a much larger role. The family environment plays a much larger role. And that's something that I propagate, that the gender parity actually has started home. It has to be how you run your family to begin with. Are the two partners sharing equal responsibilities? When your kids grow up, they look at you as role models to say, this is how you do it, right? My mother is doing this, my father is doing this. My mother is going to work, my father is going to work. If she says something, he listens. So I think the concept of gender parity, one, starts by children looking up to you as role models. And two, it is about how you are treating these children. So as I have a boy and a girl, now for all practical purposes, gender is not relevant in the house. Whether it is education, opportunities, interest, whatever needs to be done, the level of respect, the voice that both of them have is exactly at par. So the point is very simple. Yes, the education system has a role to play, but I don't think the education system explicitly was a discriminator. In the past, it was more about families not sending girls to school, but once they're in the school, they could do very well. It is what we do with them at home, how we behave, how we show role model is what will make a difference to the next generation. And all of us, at least women, my age group and more, who have children, have that explicit responsibility of driving gender parity at home, because that's probably the only way the next few generations will take it for granted.
So how company like ours can engage and benefit by MentorW?
I would love to. I would love to have women from a company like Air India Express, because one, you all understand why it's important, and you're already proving to the world that you can do it. So it's an evolved audience, right? It's always easier to work with an audience that understands the need and is working towards it. I'll be happy to talk to any of you to see how we can introduce our services and programs to you, either at a corporate level, but more importantly, I prefer for women to join a diverse group. So we run groups of women, mentoring programs where people from different companies and organizations, as well as individual sign-ups, they come and join the group. So when you discuss things, you actually get multiple different perspectives. You're not confined by your own organization thinking. You are thinking as individuals. You are behaving as individuals in those groups. So we run those diverse groups, and I'll be very happy to have an offline conversation to see how, if at individual level or at corporate level, if it might be of interest to you.
That's great. We would surely, come back to you. I have one question for you. You are mentoring the professionals. That is what your CV is reading. So I have a question: whether you would like to do in governments also, as I said, in panchayats, mentoring the women there. Do you
That's
have any plans?
I haven't. So one of our on our roadmap, one of the things that we are already reaching out to is the PSUs. The next thing would be to go out to the social sector, because there's a lot of women talent there and could definitely do with a lot of hand holding. I haven't yet thought about going beyond that at the government bodies, but why not? I think the idea is get the right target audience. It could be anywhere. Women who have a professional responsibility of any nature. We would definitely love to work with them.
Okay, wonderful. Geeta ji, it was a really, these subjects are really close to my heart. And that was the reason I was told to, talk to you on this. So it was a wonderful session, and I am definitely sure that all our women, female and male employees both would benefit from it. They will know the value of why we are talking about gender parity, and I'm sure they will be more at ease with the women employees for various reasons. That's good, and we will definitely look at certain suggestions which you have given regarding mentoring. We are thinking about it for quite some time, but we will definitely look into it, and we'll get in touch with you. Thank you so
Well,
much.
all the best, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.